Hey guys, Novus here, and welcome back to From the Depths. So it's been a while, that I've been working on this battleship. Quite a while now, to be honest, but I think she's pretty much done. It may need like a tiny bit of mucking around with, calibrating a little bit here and there. So was kind of tempted to yet again replace the main guns. As I am... I do really like cram cannons. They're nice. They're not too much mucking around. I mean, if it was to get damaged badly and the gauge was to be decreased or something like that, it'll fire. You know what I mean? It'll just keep doing its thing. And it's just, they're much easier to keep running in a heavy fight. So on, heavier sorts of ships that are designed to take a lot more punishment, I just find it to be a bit more effective. Now, I actually do also probably need to set the altitude a tiny bit higher because the waves are washing over the ship as it goes, but it's not a big deal. The idea is to keep this ship fairly low in the water, but I don't want to have things like the lasers ending up underwater or anything like that. It could cause some issues. But for the most part, yeah, it should be good to go. Now, the lasers are much more effective. So I've gone over the lens quite a bit. The biggest thing, of course, being I've managed to set it up so that we can produce a hell of a lot more power. And I mean a hell of a lot more power. So, the way that I managed this, we've still got our steam generators back here. Yes, it's set to burn at 0.5. No, this isn't right. They shouldn't be burning at 0.5. Okay, I might need to go over that and readjust it, as I was fairly certain I had that set down lower. But on the other hand, yes, so if battery power gets below 95%, at that point it sets the boiler burn rate up to full. And what this means is if one of our boilers gets damaged, ends up shut down, whatever else, and we're in mid-combat, the second our power gets down to 95%, all the other remaining boilers will immediately crank up to full power, and yeah, Bob's your uncle, we should keep running. Should sort of start charging them batteries back up. I also turned this generator around because it was kind of upside down before. That needs painting. But yeah, so at the moment, these ones each, from memory, should end up at like 6,500 energy generated per second. Now the way that we managed to boost it up to have a lot more power is under here, where we've got our propellers and so forth. We now have some steam generators. Now these are surprisingly powerful, and I mean like really surprisingly powerful. And yeah, see, I still think I need to set the top ones up to be a little bit lower. Maybe? I can't remember actually. I think I may have ended up having to turn that up. I went through quite a lot of balancing with the power and sort of moving it back and forth and so forth. So because it was below 95%, it would have cranked these up to 100%. And they would have started producing a lot more power. Like 4 times the power essentially. So they're currently winding back down a little bit at the moment, but they're very simple, cheap setups are these single block boilers, but god damn can they put out some power. It's single steam pipe, so it can just build up tons of pressure. And I don't have any relief valves, so I mean I haven't actually run into a problem with it yet. It doesn't seem like you necessarily need relief valves of them, at least if they're smaller setups like these, as I've never really found that the pressure has gotten great enough to actually destroy or damage any of them, so it seems to run fine. But we are generating a crap ton of power. Now these aren't perfectly even. This end is actually much longer than that end. I didn't actually stop it dead in the center like I probably should have, but it's fine. They're not perfectly balanced, but I still get as much power as I would if I had sort of set them up slightly differently. It just means that if like this set was to get damaged, we lose more power than if this set was to get damaged. It's not great, I should probably even those up a little bit, but other than that, it should run fine. So yeah, that's set up. the propellers on the sides here, I found out what was confusing me. So if I set up to show forces and so forth, if I let it drop, so you see those yellow lines, they're kind of showing that, you know, that's the direction the force is being applied, and so it's trying to push the ship down. When you attempt to turn, and you see these things kick in, if I hit Y, so I'm trying to turn to the left, and we're currently at the back end of the ship. Alright, so this should be, whoop, trying to turn left. You'll see the forces applied are actually going to the right. Now it turns out it's reversed. I didn't realize, but it turns out, as far as I'm aware, I believe it's to do with the colors, so as to be able to determine how the forces are being applied. But it would appear that these aren't pushing forces, they're lifting forces. So what's happening is these propellers, the direction the force is being applied, whoops, the direction the force is being applied, it's the direction it's lifting, not pushing. So because of that, if I hit I and it's, you know, the force is being applied in that direction, it's not actually pushing in that direction, it's lifting in that direction. It's sort of a situation, it's weird. Basically it just means that it has to be reversed. So I ended up with so much confusion in regards to it. But yeah, so it should turn in the correct directions now. See, it's not a great deal of turning power, but I mean, it's enough that we can kind of turn the ship if it's stationary and sort of slowly shift it around, but it's also a bit more of a boost when we are actually in motion. And oh yeah, I'm in the wrong control seat for this. Whoops. Let me... No, that's not gonna turn off. Okay, it would seem our propellers aren't willing to turn off unless I do this. Because it's not actually considered yawing unless we're in the control seat that has yaw controls. So yeah, from the advanced control seat, you can actually turn while still like running those propellers down here for forward momentum, all the way down here. So yeah, these can totally be running while you're in the advanced control seat, and normally in this seat, if I were to yaw, it would immediately switch those off. If you're in the advanced control seat, you're not technically yawing, but you can still turn via these little propellers. The rudders aren't set up to interact with it in any way. I totally could set it up that way. I don't know which is positive and which is negative though, right or left. Anyway, yeah, they can totally be set up that way. I just, yeah, haven't mucked around with it yet. So yeah, we've got all the new steam engines, which means we've got a lot more power, and I mean a lot more power. Which means I'm now able to have shields up the top here. So we've got shields in case something is flying overhead and is trying to rail shot straight down at us. So you got like a fire that's swooping over the top and it's just spraying down the entire deck of the ship. Yeah, at this point, these shields up the top here should, for the most part, protect it. Now, I mean, at the very ends, we're not really protected, but the main bulk of the body is protected via shielding. So it should work a lot more effectively in regards to that. On top of that, we have balancing thrusters at the front and back here now. And these are to control pitch as well as to control altitude and so forth. Now, the primary thing is pitch. So if I were to now, so I'm sure anyone who saw the previous iteration remembers it kind of nosing way up into the air every time we hit our boosters. Well now, if I were to enable those and hop out to here, you'll see at first it'll nose up a bit, but for the most part it will stay level. And it'll just kind of scoot on through the water. So yeah, a lot better in regards to that sort of stuff nowadays. Again, if you do try to turn, it'll cut out those boosters, and then the second you stop turning, the boosters kick back in, and off you take again. So yeah, it's a lot more stable in regards to that. It still does nose up a little bit, but again, it's no big deal. The primary thing was just keeping it relatively stable so that the guns could make sure that they were going to be able to fire in each direction. Because with the nose raising right up, if we were to try and close on an opponent, these front guns could end up in a position where to actually fire at the enemy, we're going to have to hit these, and we just take all that detection off the front. So keeping that nose down a bit, big deal. Now I will quickly turn on the... Sorry, not turn on, but I'll go over the lasers. So, if we go into the front end here, also changed up the anti-torpedo torpedoes as well, changed up a bunch of stuff. So we have got a hell of a lot more pumps now. I've upped the pumps big time. And it's one of the primary reasons we're generating so much power now, is so that we can actually have all these pumps running and just be flooding energy back into this laser setup. Now the laser's been changed over. I had heard quite a few times even beforehand that, you know, people were mentioning that the continuous laser was more effective. I'm kind of not sure which way to go with it still. Not sure which would be more effective in the long run, because I've sort of seen some slightly inconsistent results when mucking around with it. Okay, yeah, I definitely didn't save last time I edited it, because I painted this as well. Okay, my bad. But yeah, so we've got 3 storage cavities after the tons of pumps, 2 laser stabilizers, and a laser frequency doubler there, just to raise the damage value quite a bit. Now, because of that, we're doing 644 continuous damage for 4.2 AP. Doesn't seem like a great deal, but once it's really in a fight, it becomes fairly immediately apparent. It's quite effective. Yeah, we've still got our sonar buoys down here. Now, I'm going to be dealing with those. I actually need to rip a crap ton of those out and cut our costs down quite a lot, as at the moment, we're not actually using them. I was going to use them, but I had to fiddle and fiddle and fiddle with the design of these to actually get them working, and as such I've ended up in a situation where I'm not even running a sonar buoy on any of them. Now, I do prefer to do so, because the idea is, so it's the same as if I'm setting up an anti-heat tracking missile. I'll truck a flare into the missile, so that not only is my missile heading towards their missile, but their missile's heading towards my missile. And that way we can damn near guarantee the interception of the missile. So that was why before I was putting sonar buoys into the torpedoes. And what was happening was the enemy torpedo would actually, rather than just trying to continue past our missile and our missile trying to have to sort of curve and engage it, they would actually turn towards each other and end up in a pretty much head-on collision type path. So I might even muck around a bit and end up setting up a couple more torpedoes, or maybe even just one torpedo out of each of these that would actually still run a sonar buoy, and it would sort of just, it'd sit in the other pack of torpedoes, and as the enemy's torpedoes got closer, it would intercept them and so forth. But I've had some weird and derpy results with them. They're a little difficult to use, so I feel like if they were one block longer, they'd be much more effective, but it's just a little difficult to set it up that way. One thing I had considered was potentially to increase the number of actual gantries that I can have and increase the size of the missiles. I could set up along here. So set that as, that would be essentially these with like a missile controller at the end. And then from there we'd have our launch pads facing this way, and then gantries like so. So we get that one more gantry. And then what would happen is this, of course, would have to be ripped out along with the block behind it, and would allow for, like, I could even scooch the entire missile up to that edge there, and it would kind of just sit in there. Because this entire under area here can be flooded. It's not really meant to stay sealed necessarily. So having it flooded because we've got holes in the sides would be perfectly fine. So I'd kind of consider doing that and firing the torpedoes off of either side, but at the moment it is kind of technically sort of working. It does intercept enemy torpedoes and so forth, so works fine. Just, yeah, the torpedoes themselves are a little bit hard to control. They seem to derp off a bit. outside of that, I don't know what's going on here. Oh, yeah. Of course. Okay. So, outside of that, I'm trying to think, what else have I changed? I don't think I've changed too much more than that. That pretty much seems to cover everything I can think of that I've changed in it recently. So, yeah, it's still been undergoing improvements, but at this stage it's already technically, like, it's ready for combat. I mean, I could throw this thing into a fight, and it would be fine. I'm supposed to set that to there, as that's controlling our altitude. May allow us... Nope, I just don't care. Alright, fair enough. Because we're actually, yeah, we're 2 meters lower than we should be in the water. And I don't know why. Well, actually just 1 meter lower, but I thought I'd set it down a little bit lower. There we go. Okay, that's gotten us to -5, right? So this is where we should sit. And yeah, that should be fine. So it's undergone quite a bit of changes. I'm quite happy with them. Now, to test out its lasers and so forth, especially against like more high health targets and so forth. First off, let's see it fight a warrior. So in this situation, it's basically invulnerable at this stage. So the second that... Nice shot. Yeah, second that warrior fires, here we go. Okay. Let's chill out and watch. They're definitely on their way. There we are. And yeah, it will immediately evaporate. So then if I was to destroy that and bring in a bulwark, it's a much bigger ship. This is one of the more heavy ships that the Onyx Watch has access to. Now, the ship has been bugging me a bit lately because it kind of has a tendency to still try and charge the enemy to some degree. I don't know why. So I'm just going to switch it to weapons only briefly. And we should see a whole spray of shots coming over. And our lasers should do their job. So yeah, now I have found that there are still issues with packs of missiles. So large volumes of missiles that have all been fired simultaneously and are moving over in a large pack. I don't understand how they're more effective, because one would think that the detonation of one would sort of damage and potentially detonate the others. It doesn't seem to go that way. So I've been putting it against some stuff from the Steel Striders. And there was one ship they've got, I think it's called Thyr? T-H-Y-R. Yeah, it appears to launch those kinds of packs of missiles, and as such will end up causing a bit of a problem. So there we go, we just copped our first hit, and it was just basically inconsequential. At the same time, this thing's getting sprayed a bit, but it is meant to be like just a big plate of armor on the outside, so it's not too big of a deal. Now, having shields that are extended out a bit more and are actually covering that, or even like a separate set of shields for that, might be worthwhile. It's something else I guess I could still look at. There is also sort of the issue of stuff like what just occurred there. So what can occur is if they come in too low, which I believe from what I've seen appears to be the biggest issue with those missiles. They don't come in from a high angle, they come in very low. And if anything's coming in a bit too low, it seems like my lasers are just not willing to line them up. Now I was hoping they would, seeing as we've even got lasers that, like here, are much lower down, and as such should be able to target things that are lower down like that. But I believe it's maybe more to do with our detection. Even though we've got quite a bit of detection in places that should be detecting things like that, I mean, they've got very clear lines of sight. It does not appear that on low angles they'll actually pick them up. Now, they're also set up to only target once things are close. The primary reason for this is accuracy. I don't want it burning through all of its higher damage lasering while they're still at 1,000 meters. And then once they get into range that it can actually be accurate, the lasers don't have enough damage to actually kill it. So I've been trying to make sure that that wasn't going to be an issue. You can sort of watch the laser here. You can see its damage, so it goes down from 644. It does very quickly drop. But it charges up fairly quickly, and that's the important part. Now I could still use more storage cavities, I guess, to bump its damage way up there. And, like, it wouldn't really cost us anything more. So, I could still extend the storage cavities on, but we've only really got space for one more. So, I mean, there's not a tremendous amount more that I can do in regards to that, although what I could do is move the laser coupler back here now that I'm not putting Q switches onto it, and I could get 2 more storage cavities, so from 3 to 5, and at that point we should have a pretty solid amount of damage. So, yeah, thus far that seems to work fine. Advanced cannons are still a bit of an issue. I mean, they'll give us a hard time. Not so much this stuff. I mean, it's a little bit of an issue. It is kind of hitting us here and there and so forth. Even despite our shields. So it seems to... They might even be a little too close, a little too flush up against the side of the hull, and I think that's the issue. It's that one there. See how it cuts in? So I just need to move that shield out, like 1 meter. And that would be fixed. But outside of that, yeah, it's not an issue with that. When we put it up against things like the Steel Strider craft, where they have really massive advanced cannons that do tremendous amounts of damage, they fire fairly quickly and seem to... I don't even know how they're doing it, but when I see their shots fire, like, I don't even see the bullet travel, it's that quick. Yet at the same time... yeah, at the same time, it just whips straight through our shield. And will hit the hull. And I'm like, wait, what? As far as I was aware, the faster the shot was traveling, the more likely it would sort of end up having an issue, but say lovely. So yeah, we do lose, like, we spend a lot of materials to run the ship. We also are spending a lot of materials to keep repairing this, which is why I do feel like having some advanced shielding on the outside would be good. Its primary purpose was meant to be to cover us against cram cannons, as well as having anything that was ramming, because I did test before, and anything that had a giant ram on the front. Get rid of this. Yeah, anything that had like a big giant ram on the front. If it slammed into the side of our ship here, before it would just hit here and straight into the armor. And I mean, it could hit in, take out turrets, it could do all kinds of really messed up stuff. It could be a 100th of the cost of this ship and just do tremendous damage to it. And we'd end up spending, you know, like 5 times what their ship's worth trying to repair our ship. So in that sort of situation, so the cost benefit is really bad. However, having these big plates of armor on the sides that are sort of specced with rams inside, internally, means that when they do hit, they're basically going to have a bad time. On top of that, we do have just occasionally a little tiny bit here and there of, whoops, of ammunition boxes set up to be a distraction. So any AI that's set up to specifically, like the standard AIs, they're set up to target ammo boxes, AI cores and things like that. That's what a couple of ammo boxes here and there are for. On top of that, I had also considered putting an AI core into these side shield things here as well. Maybe on each end or something like that, just to make sure that I really draw fire to that shield, as it's meant to take most of the damage for us, and it's fairly cheap. I mean, it's hollow, so it's not super heavily armored or anything like that. But at the same time, I do feel like I could more heavily armor it. It's just that I wanted to make sure that I could put these rims all through it and make certain that anything that's hitting the side of our ship is just going to stop on the side of it. And I've tested that, and they really do stop on our ship. The problem being the collision never stops, because neither ship's really getting wrecked because of the fact that our rams are protecting us against their rams are protecting us against them against our rams. So our only real option is to then spray them down. But yeah, and in terms of taking care of anti-aircraft type stuff, one of the big problems that I was worried about, that I wanted to make certain was safe against, was the Barracuda. The reason for this is it uses bombers, and they would be incredibly effective against like a large, expensive battleship. However, that's not how this is going to be going down. So, the guns are all set up. They all seem to shoot perfectly fine. Now, once we see these things come over, something new is going to be happening. We no longer actually even need to use our anti-aircraft guns against these little aircraft. Don't get me wrong, it's still kind of nice to have, and sort of occasionally spray them down with those guns. I don't think we're necessarily even aiming for those at the moment with those guns. I'm pretty sure it's aiming specifically for that large craft, which is a little annoying because it's not the way it's set up. But, you know, it can do whatever it wants. Which I think it might even be firing at these just, you know, a little too inaccurately. Yeah, because it sounded like it made a hit there. Now, they are actually going to destroy themselves, like so. So if they stop directly above my ship within the range of the lasers and fire that gun out from the bottom, what will happen is we'll actually detonate that shell directly below them. And because the shell is still so close to them when it detonates half the time, geez, those guns are loud. Yeah, because they're often so close when they do this, the detonation will actually do damage to their own ship. And it can cripple them to the point where we can then spray them down with our guns. And they stand no chance against our AA guns, essentially. So, yeah, Bob's your uncle. Should be able to very easily deal with them. They are literally no threat to it with their cannons nowadays. As you can see, whenever they are that tiny bit too low, when they do fire off that cannon... what is that one? Yeah, it'll immediately detonate. And they'll have a bad time. So it even cripples their own guns. It can have a tendency to detonate the cannon itself, at which point they're completely disarmed, they're no threat to us whatsoever. Simultaneously, the main ship itself is, again, no threat to us. We've got shields, we've got cram, like anti-cram lasers. I'm assuming that's referencing one of the fighters or whatever. I still don't understand why it tells me about that problem, because it's on the enemy side, but c'est la vie. So yeah, it'll spray this sucker down though with its anti-air guns here and there. Hasn't actually seemed to really hit it yet. I mean, it's been firing its cram cannons. It seems to have done a little bit of damage here and there. But for the most part, hasn't really been firing at it. Most of those fighters are down though, so I'm pretty sure it's anti-air guns. We're primarily focusing on that until now. And now we're just sort of starting to hit them with the standard smaller machine guns that are mounted on the top. And there we go, we're just starting to hit them with the AA guns again. So you see the shrapnel starting to come off. And of course, immediately it starts falling out of the sky, so as soon as it gets down and out of the sky, we can start landing those shots. And Bob's your uncle. Vulnerable position. So, should be very easily able to deal with something like this. And at the same time, from what I found, it can deal with pretty much anything that I've found that the white flayers will be able to throw at us. The Onyx bots will be able to throw at us. Until we're up to some tougher enemies, like the good old Steel Striders. Looking forward to fighting them. I've been trying not to... And I know there are plenty of people, majority of the people who've been watching my videos, like, they already played this game. They've seen the enemies. But just in case there are people who haven't, I've been trying my best not to spoil vehicles too much. Now, I know I've ended up bringing in a lot of the Onyx Watch vehicles now, but I had been intending on fighting the Onyx Watch before fighting the White Flayers, and kind of just ended up in combat with the White Flayers by accident. So, I mean, we were meant to be running into them at this stage, so I don't think it's too huge of a spoiler, but at the same time, I've been trying to refrain from showing off too many of the enemy builds, so that way we can encounter them once we're in the actual campaign. So, just in case anyone was wondering why I do tend to bring in a lot of the same vehicles and so forth when I'm doing these showcases, it's just until we come up against different vehicles from the different factions, and then they'll sort of move into the rotation of being used as test subjects in the showcases and so forth. But yeah, at the moment I've been trying to sort of refrain from doing too much of that, but until we come up against something like the Steel Striders, I've been looking forward to fighting them. Even more so than the Onyx Watch, and yeah, really looking forward to them. But there we go. It's like, it's a very, very simple battle for us now, is that one. We don't take really any damage during the fight, and we've still got all these machine guns. They can be selected. Oh yeah, the other thing I did do, Group 1 is now this cannon, Group 2 is now this cannon, Group 3 is now these 4 cannons, so the 4 AA guns. are all in one group on this side. The 4 AA guns on this side are all in one group. Now the primary reasoning for this was just so that I can manually fire, if I so wish. So I can take manual control of these and just start spraying them off. And then finally, we have all those little machine guns in their own little group, and that is just derping out. Oh wait, did we take... Oh, we took control of this one. But what we don't have control of, apparently, is its balloon. Wait, what? Huh. That's cool. There we go. And then when it spawns a fresh balloon, will that be our balloon? Is that... Anyway. So yeah. We should have absolutely zero issues with stuff like that now, though. And at the same time, I believe we should be able to easily turn off our weapons if we do want to commandeer something or whatever else. And we can totally take control of these guns and start manually trying to sort of fire ahead of the enemy and so forth and hit them, and yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it for now. But this thing is essentially complete. There's a couple of things I think might need a little bit of a change, but they've already been mentioned here, so you know they're not going to be any surprise. I don't think I'll be doing another sort of showing of it once those are done. I think I'll probably just bring it straight into the campaign, and we can sort of have a look over the little changes that have occurred between now and then when it does get into the campaign. But for the moment, this is pretty much how it's been set up, and yeah, she seems fairly effective. Barely effective. Should be able to, as I said, should be able to deal with anything that we are currently coming up against. Now when I cut down the sonar buoys and all that sort of stuff, it should cut the cost down quite a bit. So at the moment though, we have managed to keep it under 400k. It's almost 350. I have a feeling, as far as I'm aware, the sonar buoys are quite expensive. Hang on, let me get it here really quickly, and just before I move on. So the sonar buoy holders each cost 60 materials, and we have quite a few in here. So, I mean, we should be able to bring it down by at least a couple hundred, maybe even a couple thousand. I can't remember exactly how many there are, but there's quite a few. And so I'm going to rip those out, but at the same time I'm going to be putting in a couple more storage cavities and little things like that here and there. Editing the torpedoes down the bottom. That's one thing I didn't show here, the torpedoes. So just really quickly. Flares, ship, godly judgment. So this is one that has like a crap ton of really damaging torpedoes. So what I might do... Okay, yeah, that would be it way over there in the distance. What I'll do is I'll sit underneath, facing the direction... I think it's over there. Yeah. So facing the direction of the enemy. Where are your torpedoes? Wait, is there an enemy over there? Where is the enemy? Yeah, he is over there. Alright. These torpedoes are just going to take a very long time to get over to us because we're a decent distance away. I would respawn my ship, but it takes a while to ramp up. That is the one weakness this ship currently has. Now don't get me wrong, when it first starts, it'll detect itself as being below 95% and will crank all those steam generators to 100%. At which point, it'll build its power up very quickly, and those ones underneath usually run at a pretty low power rating, but at the same time can ramp up very quickly, and that's supposed to be the idea behind it. So you can see our torpedoes now. These are the missile interceptor torpedoes. They're a little, how's it going? But they do the job. So we've got a primary set that'll fire quite a lot off initially, and then we sort of have, yeah, that backup set that just fired once the missiles get a little bit closer. Now I wanted to set it up so that there was more and more waves of these sort of a situation, but as you can see, they will absolutely chase down and kill all those enemy torpedoes well before they can reach us, and at very worst we'll end up getting hit by a couple of our own non-explosive torpedoes. They have no weapons on board, they just have the missile interceptors, and we'll kind of sail out and try and detonate all the enemy's torpedoes. So yeah, again, I feel like they could be a bit better with a bit more control. because at the moment they got a fin at the back, but I feel like if they had a fin at the front, it would give it better ability to sort of turn itself and so forth. Get that APN guidance going as well, maybe even just target prediction instead. I do like the idea of having some target prediction. And the torpedoes do seem to fire out in too large of volumes, so I need to set it up so that, yeah, see, some of them are firing at a much higher range, so that it'll kind of come out in waves, essentially. And then, yeah, I feel like that would be good. I feel like that would have it set. But as it stands already, like, it's pretty much a case of good luck getting those torpedoes through. And it does take quite a bit of ammo to load them up, but to be honest, we got so many ammo processes for all of our guns and so forth anyway, that it doesn't really matter that big of a deal. So, yeah, that's our battleship. It's pretty much done. And so, yeah, you can see what I mean, like, it functions. Like, right now it is battle worthy. It's just that I feel like it could be even better if I change just a couple of little things on it, just make it a tiny bit better. But yeah, that's it. Battleship set up, ready to go, ready to rumble, doing some serious damage once it gets in there, and getting its armor panel here shredded. That'll go better when, as I said, I maybe put a couple shields there. We've got more power. We've got access to, I think even when all of our stuff is running and all churning. Right now it's saying we've got 4,200, but I could have sworn we only actually had like 2,000 to 3,000, but I think that seems like 4,200 is as low as it'll go. So we still have a bit of energy, and we're producing more than enough to run that, way more. Like, seeing as we could crank it up a lot more. If I really wanted to, I could increase the power on this ship tremendously by just throwing a bunch of batteries onto here, or sort of into different areas of the ship, and increasing our actual output, because our input is tremendous. It's massive overkill, but the reason for that has been, and this is why I don't want to utilize all of it, it's backup. So it's basically a redundancy. The idea is, because these are only running at 0.25, the second, say all 6 of these were destroyed, it would crank all of them up to full power. So we would be running at 1.0 instead of 0.25, and all of these, say these ones got destroyed, and we still had these ones that are at almost 2,000, these would go up to producing like 8,000, I believe, each, if these got destroyed, at which point they would more than make up for those. On the other hand, if our big ones in the back there were to get destroyed, all of those underneath would crank up. So one way or another, we are generating a hell of a lot more power than is necessary. So again, I could up the power output a bit and have those normally running at like 0.5 along with the back engines, and we'd be going nuts. Now, from what I remember of the math, I believe we're using like 10.5, I think it was, or something like that. But it's just over 10 materials per second. So it's quite a bit of materials per second to be able to run that. But when I looked at how much fuel we'd be using if we were trying to run fuel generators, and the fact that fuel detonates, miscellaneous resources don't, and can still be used for other purposes like repairing the vehicle, processing ammunition, all this sort of stuff, I just felt it to be a lot more worthwhile. The enemy torpedoes are sort of seeming to get through here and there now, just right now, but that's, again, as I said, something that can be improved. Once our torpedoes are running a little more effectively, they'd be more effective at getting rid of these enemy torpedoes. The enemy is quite close to us at the moment, though. They are just over there, so I mean, it makes sense. Our air guns are currently going nuts. Just get an idea of how badly, without us controlling any of the guns and it just kind of aiming automatically and all the rest of it, how much damage we're doing to this sucker. Hey guys, so sorry about that. I'm starting to suspect that there's a conspiracy to call me every time I'm recording. So yeah, it's just like every time I'm recording, somebody calls me. Yeah, so at this stage, as you can see, these guns are absolutely doing their job. These cram cannons can take out the big guns, the small guns, so we just shred the living hell out of the side of a ship, and we'll take down any any aircraft that are trying to turn up and start a fight with us. I have also just... Oh yeah, I can't interact with that in that way. Whoops. I just tried to go into build mode on their ship. So, I just noticed something though that's intriguing about their ship. I just realized that... Ah, okay. So these invert back and forth. So what they've got going on with their torpedoes here is each of those blocks, see that like steel block there? There'll be another booster behind that. And that's the torpedo facing in the opposite direction. The same on this side. So they basically just sort of inverted them back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, so as to have torpedoes facing in both directions. And it's just straight up open. Interesting. Very interesting. So that's how they managed to get big torpedoes into what is not actually that big of a ship. Well played. But yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it for this. As you can see, she's absolutely ready and willing to fight. We're now getting our AA guns on the other side back into the fight. And when it's already damaged to this degree, I mean, there's not really much of a point. But at this stage, we could totally hit this. Well, that doesn't need to be turned off. At this stage... Oh, there goes that gun. This thing will probably just disintegrate itself, to be honest. But we could commandeer. I mean, the whole thing should just switch off. So we're still in full control of this ship as well, despite all the sort of the mucking around and all the stuff that I've done with it. We can just immediately turn the guns off and on. We've got ways to get in and out of the ship. It's a little derpy, I know. I mean, I kind of feel like I still want to maybe adjust this a bit, but I quite like the elevator. Like, I like it, but I don't like it. I don't know. I'm not 100%, but we can just jump in the elevator, scoot on up to the top, hop out, and if we were to go to not that door, but this door, just run straight outside. We're out of the ship. Go back in, go around, explore, and do all that stuff. So, yeah, I think this is going to be effective. I think this is going to work. I really do. I feel like this could do what we need it to do in the campaign. This will be the guardian of our territory. This will be the thing that kind of just skulks around in our territory and waits for the enemy to be dumb enough to walk in. And the second they do, it'll just open up on them. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with it. And I hope you guys like it as much as I do, because yeah, I'm really pleased with it. I mean, it was a very simple design. Like the shape of the hull, like all the stuff, it was all very basic and straightforward, and the idea was meant to be keep it simple, keep it basic, keep it straightforward, make it effective. And that way, if we're getting into these fights, because I was just sort of starting to have a bit of trouble with, you know, the enemy was bringing in just some bigger, nastier craft that I was just struggling to deal with. It's still hanging around. And so it's good to be in a position now where it's just like, nah, we don't really have to worry about just being outright overpowered by the enemy now, because now we've got something that can just pretty much outright overpower most of everything we're going to be going up against anytime soon. So, on top of that, I'm really pleased with the speed. When we do this, I mean, we're still going up to almost 25 meters per second. Now, it's a tiny bit slower now since we've ended up stabilizing it, I guess. But as you can see, it'll end up getting its max speed up to almost 23 meters per second, which for a huge battleship like this, it's pretty nice. It means we can get it in and out of combat when we need it, move it around in our territory, and have good times. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys are looking forward to seeing this sucker get into the game, into that campaign, and just start messing those white flares up. Because God knows I am. Yeah, the other effective thing is, yeah, these aren't a problem. All we got to do is what we've done here, set our speed to maximum, and then we can target them with these guns. And what'll happen is we wait and see how quick we're going. They're sort of doing their usual circle now. As soon as they take a straight path towards us, that's when you break them. So that's all we got to do, is just keep going forwards, and they'll keep ending up on straight paths towards us, and then they'll circle once they get into the right spot, and so on and so forth. So that one's just falling out of the air now, and it'll end up in line with our air guns in a moment. Nice try. And yeah, this stage is just getting sprayed at, I would assume. Just can't see the shots yet because they're overshooting. Oh no, our AA guns must be reloading. Oh, well, still. Regardless, yeah. Should be able to deal with that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm really happy with that. So, again, really thank you guys so much for the advices you've given me. It's made this a lot easier, sort of just little tips here and there and so forth. And it's also, even if it's not something that, like, I've overlooked, if it's something I've sort of already adjusted in the background, for example, the lasers, I'd actually redid those and then got, like, a really helpful tip from someone that actually, like, about the lasers and how to try and better set up the lamps and so forth. They did also offer to send me a ship, and if this is still lackluster, I guess, by the time it's done, I would happily take that offer up. I just been sort of trying to do it the hard way, I guess, at the moment, because I'm just stubborn. But, yeah, I thoroughly am, like, enjoying the fact that if I'm not quite sure about what's going on here, if I am a bit stuck, that you guys are comfortable to just sort of, you know, tell me I'm an idiot. So, yeah, just, you know, it really does help, guys, so I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for it, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and hope you guys have a good one. Hope you guys enjoyed seeing the new Battleship, and yeah, catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one, guys.